Welcome to She Power Podcast. I am your host, Sophia Gathers.
And I am your co-host, Dania Walker.
And I am your other co-host, Takima Simmons.
Yes, we are She Power Podcast. And thank you all who will be tuning in to catch the replay. So tonight's topic, we will be talking about grief, okay? Praying through it and processing it. I know there's a lot of people out here who have experienced some type of grief, some way, shape, or form. I personally have lost my mother on February 5th. So we thought that this topic is fitting for this occasion. So, ladies, I want to propose like a conversation piece here. How do you define praying through it, processing it, through the tears when it comes to grief? So let's have a dialogue about that.
Okay. Every grief looks different for everybody, and we all know that. And I know that it's normal for people to say, don't let anyone tell you how to grieve. But from being in the mental health field, especially dealing with people on a consistent basis who have like severe mental health concerns, and everything is just piling on top of each other, and they may not just be grieving the death of a loved one, but they're grieving, a life that they wish they had. And so when they're not managing well, that's when other things come into play, like substance abuse and stuff like that. And so you're not telling people how to grieve, but there is a wrong way to grieve. And that's when you self-medicate and you do things that's not helpful to you, to help you process your grief, even down to, marijuana. People say, well, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you do it to escape and it's no longer recreational, now it's a habit. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're doing this because you don't want to feel or you don't want to think about what is presently bothering you. So people smoke, they drink, they gamble, they have sex, they do all of these things instead of actually dealing with their grief. And so I can't tell you how to grieve, no, but I can tell you if you are self-medicating with any type of pills or alcohol and you start realizing, okay, this is not recreational for me, then you're grieving improperly, because now you're just putting something else on that you have to work through. So now you got to work through grief and an addiction.
Right.
And
right.
Addiction is hard. I've seen it. I see it all the time. And it's not something that you want to have to deal with. So,
right. Yeah. So people know that you deal with people who have certain types of addictions, right? And a lot of times people don't understand that there's an appropriate way to grieve and there's also a negative way to grieve. So can you expound a little bit more on how it's easy for people to connect to substance, thinking that it is a healthy way to cope? Because a lot of people don't realize that. Like, I'm a therapist also too, right? So I knew that my mom was eventually going to transition based upon what we were learning from the doctors, right? But I also understand that none of us are guaranteed to be on this earth forever. But because my mom had a health issue, we knew that based upon what the doctors were saying, we were counting time, right? So I had started preparing myself for what grief looks like. Because I'm a therapist, I was introduced to it because I also teach other people how to appropriately grieve, right? So I had an advantage on top of most people. And I certainly didn't go to substance. I did my coping skills, deep breathing, speaking to my therapist, talking out loud with my family members, engaging. So can you talk to the people a little bit more about what substance look like the end result? Like, it only takes one time. From your expertise, processing grief plus substance, what does that look like?
So it's like once you experience something that is causing you grief, and a lot of people, the first thing they turn to is isolation. And I often say that isolation is the breeding ground for depression. and anxiety, because if I'm not allowing level-headed and sound-minded individuals to speak to me and kind of encourage me, that isolation is only going to make everything worse. It exacerbates everything that I'm feeling. So if I'm, grieving, it's like, okay, I don't know how to deal with it. So, when people begin, marijuana is a gateway drug now. It was cigarettes, now it's marijuana, because now they're putting stuff in the marijuana. And a lot of my patients didn't even know that their marijuana was laced with cocaine, or that it was laced with fentanyl. And now they have another addiction that's even harder to break, because they didn't know. And the
Right.
person getting it from doesn't care. It's a supply and demand. I want you to come back. So
Yeah.
I'm going to make it so that you get addicted. I'm not going to make it so you're like, okay, I don't think I want to do this anymore. It's like, no, I keep coming back. And so it's just like, it starts with something that it seems harmless.
Yeah.
Marijuana seems harmless. But what if your grief gets so heavy that you say, I need something more? I
Yeah.
this is not helping anymore. We all, like, we take medications, and the doctors will say, hey, switch from Tylenol to Motrin, so that your body does not get used to what it is that you're taking. So if you're smoking marijuana, or however you ingest it, it's like your body may get used to it, and it may not do what you want it to do anymore. So you may trickle over into something a little bit stronger. And now something that was recreational and it's just, okay, I need to decompress, is now a habit and an addiction, and it's not working. And so I need something else. So people either turn to doctors, where it's just like, oh, I'm in pain. You can't tell me I'm not in pain.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't see my pain. You can't feel my pain. Like, I've had pain in my body, and they didn't know what it was. So, and it was debilitating. I would be in the fetal position. The only thing they would do is give me Percocet and send me home. Percocet does not work well with me. It messes with my ears. And I had a small child at the time. But I kept taking it religiously to help with that pain, I would have become addicted,
Right.
because
Right.
it's highly addictive. So either be in pain or take this
Suppress
medication.
the pain. Yeah.
So people have ways, I could come to one of y'all and be like, hey, I'm really struggling. And somebody could say, hey, I got something you could take. And when people share medication, I tell people all the time, don't share medication. If you're sure you don't have an allergy or whatever the case may be, then some medications that they give across the board might be okay. But when it comes to narcotics and you sharing, they may give you a different dosage because of your height, your weight. All of those things play a part in what they're giving you. Then you take it, and now you're addicted to it because it wasn't meant for you anyway. So if you can't get that, now you're drug seeking. You're trying to find a drug, something that gives you that same feeling that you got when you first took the Percocet that somebody gave you.
Right.
So it's like, and people, once they do heroin or something like that, they're now chasing a high that they'll never get again. That first high, you won't get that again unless you get off of it and your body is clean, and then you reintroduce your body to it again. It's not hit the same every time you do it. It's going to diminish every single time. So people take more, and that's how they overdose.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Wow.
So it's like, that's why it's like, be mindful of how you grieve. If you need to cry, scream, write it out. It's okay to want to be by yourself. Don't make it a habit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, nobody's saying that you can't, because you should be able to be self-aware enough to know when you need to step away from people, because you don't want to bleed on them, and because you're experiencing something, but it's just like at the end of the day, don't spend copious amounts of time by yourself and you're not feeding, you know, the good. You
Right.
just feed
Right.
grief and that extreme sadness and worthlessness and helplessness and what am I going to do and I don't how do I move forward. And so when it comes to that substance abuse, it's to escape.
Yeah.
And it's like some people think, oh, I can do it, I'm fine, I can stop when I want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
It don't work like
it's
that.
not easy. Ask
Yeah.
somebody who is actively addicted to a drug how
Mm-hmm.
easy it is for them to stop. It's not, because that's what they know now. Now your body is craving it. It's like, yes, you do want this drug. Yes, it does help you. Yes,
Yeah.
it makes you feel good and all the things. And it's like, no, it's not
Yeah.
helping you. And
Yeah.
I can't tell you it doesn't feel good because I don't do drugs.
Right.
But it's just like, I know the excitement that I get if I'm on a roller coaster, or you try to level the playing field where it's just like, I'm gonna normalize your addiction by saying, hey, you got people who are thrill seekers and they're doing all types of things that are harmful to them, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, let me normalize your addiction by telling you, like, there are other people who are addicted to things that are not as bad, but it's still detrimental to them long term.
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The opioid crisis is through the roof now. People who are taking those over-the-counter substance or street drug and using it for other intentions just to get high or to cope with life itself. And a lot of people think that just because someone passed away is a form of grief. No, there's different types of grief. Losing a job, losing a dog, if your house burned down or somebody steal your car. Sometimes, people grieve when they lose their cell phone. It could be redundant stuff, but that's a form of grief because you lost something. So, we have to be educated on different forms of grief. It's not just losing a loved one. It could be anything, right? So, Miss Walker, how would you chime into this conversation too? I know Takima, that is her expertise because she deal with people with substance abuse, right? And she see this reoccurring issue across the board with different age levels of people, and having her expertise in that space. Your expertise in the psychology world, right? And your surroundings where you live. Talk to us a little bit about your own story about processing grief and what that looks like.
Um, like Kima said, with grief, a lot of people want to isolate themselves because it's the easier thing to do. I can attest to that. Sometimes I isolate, but isolation is not good because you need to be around people who, like Kima said, to feed into the good parts of everything. When you're grieving, if you are not around people who can help pull you out, you're going to keep going down. You're
Yeah.
going to keep going down. And I feel like our bodies are like sponges. One way
Mhm.
or another, that emotion or whatever needs to come out is going to come out. And,
Mhm.
it can be detrimental if you don't process it. So I know with me, I lost a cousin that was more like a best friend to me. And I lost a best friend in a short amount of time. I wasn't even able to process my best friend because my cousin died
Mhm.
right after. So it was just like a double wham.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but I can say what helped me is community. Whether I wanted it or not, they forced me to get out of the funk. So I feel like having community who you can trust and who is reliable, good people,
Mhm.
to help pull you out of that. They got to know you. They got to know when you're not yourself. They got to
Mhm.
know something is going on. So I would say the people you surround yourself with is very important. So they know, like, she's not her usual self. What's going on?
Mhm.
Mm.
People because a lot of people know how to mask well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say community is important. Another tool that got me out is praying, seeking the Lord, diligently seeking the Lord. And I'm not just saying like little petty prayers like, Lord, help me, I'm feeling sad. Like,
Mhm.
no, really
That
warring and
deep
calling
stuff. Yeah.
Yes, calling out the things that are bothering you, having people pray with you, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's something that, was hard for me for a long time, being vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable, and tell people, pray for me on this, help me with this. Um, I found 3 scriptures that talks about grief.
Hmm.
One of them is Psalms 34:18. It states, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit."
Hmm.
Another one is Revelations 21:4. It states, "He will wipe every tear from their eye. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." The last one is Matthew 5:4. "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted."
Hmm. Hmm.
Just simply giving it to the Lord.
Yeah.
And over and over. It's not going to happen overnight, but you
Right.
have to do your part and he'll take care of the rest. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that's powerful. I know because I was born and raised in the church. Scriptures always work, right?
yeah.
And sometimes that is the comfort that we get if we don't know anything else. But not everybody is introduced to scripture, right?
Right.
So some people don't believe in God, right? They believe in
Yeah.
whatever they do desire to believe in, but it is proven that people who believe in a higher power, my higher power is the Lord Jesus Christ, having that relationship with him, in spite of the religious aspect of anything, having that relationship with God is more powerful than anything because his word will not turn void. And a lot of times people don't revert to scriptures is because humans take the scriptures out of context, or they don't live up to the standard which God wants us to live up to. So we are portraying to people in a hypocritical manner wherein they don't want to trust God for their healing and whatever they want. So it's nice to see that some of the younger generation is coming back to is getting to know God the way they understand it without
Mhm.
all of the rules and regulations. And I find that
Mhm.
um, it's heartwarming, right?
Mhm.
Because they're earning for God in their own way so that they can understand what the biblical text truly means without someone taking it out of the order which God wanted it to be. Because the word says, "Don't add to it, don't take away." And sometimes we take away the essence of the word instead of leaving the meat there. You know how sometimes you eat a T-bone steak and you cook it to perfection and you can basically pull it off the bone, right? God wants us to take that meat clean off the bone. Don't leave no remnants up there because he is the bone,
Yeah.
right? So I found that scriptures also helped me when I lost my mom. And the process, I know my mom is in heaven, so I don't cry over that part. I don't question God about how he decided to take my mom. I just miss her, right?
Yeah.
That's a normal phase of grieving.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know that there's stages of grief too. And there is 5 stages, and I think there's 3 other alternatives. So you got denial, you have anger, you have bargaining, depression, acceptance, and then sometimes that shock, that disbelief,
Mhm.
and um, some other ones I can't think of right now. Trying to find meaning of why the person passed away, and then you have like feeling guilty that perhaps it was your fault that the person passed away, right?
Mhm.
All of these are common response to when we lose someone, or in particularly a loved one or animal or something, right? That blame there, like, why did that happen? Did I do something? That's normal, right? Because the body's response to losing something will revert to that. Like if you extremely love someone, I could have went to God and say, "Why you take my mama?" Like that's like me saying that God did a bad deal.
Right.
Like I can't go to God and say that, but someone who don't understand what losing a loved one look like and how to process it, no one can tell that person how to process their grief, for one, right? But if you have someone in your community who don't know anything about grief but to cope the wrong way, it can be very dangerous for that person.
Mhm.
But then again, how would that person know how to grieve properly anyway? So sometimes it's almost like a catch 22. And then when we see people who get addicted to substance, or we see a person who goes to church and read their Bible, we see that their grief is different. But go ahead. You had something to say?
I was gonna say, I think the Black community as a whole, we have a problem with emotion.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were taught, oh, don't cry, or will or feel made as like if you're weak if you cry. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to say, like, it's okay to feel every single emotion. God gave us emotions for a
Yeah.
reason.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a problem if you act on some of the emotions, but
Yeah.
it's okay to be upset, like, oh my goodness, like, why did they have to die? It's okay to ask those
Mm-hmm.
questions, like yourself. It's okay to laugh about it, be mad about it, cry, scream. You
Yeah.
have to get it out. And I feel like when what Kima's like, clients dealing with drugs, is because they don't want to feel. Some people were really made to feel that if you feel,
Mm-hmm.
it's the wrong thing, or like it's like dehumanizing in a sense. And it's like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to be mad. If you gotta hit the air or whatever, do what you gotta do, as long as it's
Yeah.
not harming you or yourself or other people.
Absolutely.
But feel those emotions, because again, your body, it's gonna come out either way.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody can run across you on when you're driving on the road, and now you're placing whatever you got going on onto them and making the situation bigger than what it is, because you're not dealing with what's going on. So it's
That is
important to
so true.
feel
And the
Mhm.
other term for that is anger.
Anger.
When
Yeah,
someone is grieving, and something may happen in their space amongst that, you really don't know how your emotion and response is going to be, especially if you feel attacked in any shape, form, or fashion,
hmm
because you're emotionally sensitive at that point, right?
exactly.
Sometimes you have to catch yourself. Like if somebody cross you wrong, you got to realign yourself. And it happens because we are human beings, right?
Right.
But once you realize that and I'm guilty of it, right? There was an episode when, I had a little whole catastrophe, and, I had enough was enough, and I responded harshly, right? But
Mhm.
I was able to go back and apologize, because that's what we do when we make mistakes. We apologize. I mean, you're not going to apologize for speaking truth. You're going to apologize for the abrupt response, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes there is truth in some anger, and then sometimes there's lies in anger.
Mhm.
It depends on the heart of the person, right? So I know with me, I don't have a deceitful heart, but if I'm done wrong, of course, a little anger gonna come out, but in the point of grieving, it may be an escalated anger. And that's sometimes when you say we have to understand how it make us feel, and especially in the Black community, we don't process emotions very well. We have
Mhm.
not been taught how to process aggression or emotions very well, because that is all we see. And then sometimes we're labeled because it's been taken away from us. So now you're backing people up to the corner. So when someone passed away, only thing you got left is anger,
Yeah.
right? Or you got substance, or
Yeah.
you blaming someone. But if we can come together as a community and educate ourselves on um, what does all of these things mean, instead of taking what we think we know and run with it, and then a couple of months or weeks down the road, you realize you are stuck in a pattern, right? How do we get out of that pattern as a culture, as a community? It's having these dialogues, talking
Mhm.
about these things. How
Right.
grief can take you into a space that you really don't want to be, right?
Yeah.
So after we've
It'll
gone
only turn
through it,
you to a person you don't know, like
absolutely.
you don't recognize. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's called life. But I do believe as a community, we should be there to lift each other up, um, non-judgmental, understand what that person has gone through, sit in their shoes with them, right? And allow them to, like you said, Dania, to be able to process it, understand it. It's okay to cry,
Mhm.
right? And I've heard that, but with a lot of Black men too, they've been raised to say, oh, you're a punk if you cry, or crying in
Mhm.
front of a girl make you look weak.
Mhm.
Right.
Actually, not being able to process your emotions actually make you look weak, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yes.
you're holding on to all of this nonsense, and
Mhm.
now you're busting out at the seams, and now you look mentally unstable, because you're trying to hold all of these emotions in. Your prayer's not going to work until you speak, right? They're going to bounce off the wall. Yeah, God will keep waking you up every morning, but your prayers ain't going far. And then you wonder why you can't stay in a relationship. Now you wonder why you're running through girlfriends and boyfriends like water run through a faucet, right? Because your water is contaminated. You know, we're going to keep it real, right?
Yeah.
Real, because at the end of the day,
You know?
everybody has gone through something. And again, grief is not just losing a loved one. It's losing a bad relationship. It's being in an abusive relationship. Like, you losing. Who likes to lose?
Right.
Nobody. So you're grieving over something that you lost. So what comes out of all of that? Rejection, disappointment, right? Most of all, anger. What you got left? Right? So processing it, giving over to God, not blaming everybody. Sometimes you got to hold accountability for yourself. What part did you play in it? Right? So this conversation can go a whole lot of ways, right? But processing it, understanding the stages of grief, all of these are normal things. But you would be surprised at how many people don't even know that there's stages of grief. A whole lot of them. Right. And there's a stigma in in our community also, is that people are so afraid to go get therapy. Right. It's because they're not ready to express their emotions. They're not ready to express their feelings. But hot diggity dog, let me tell you, when you go and you talk to somebody that got some sense and know what they're saying, you will walk out feeling glory. Right?
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Okay. Because now, if you get a good seasoned therapist, they're not going to side with you. They're not going to lie with you. I got good ones that's going to pray with you, right? Right up in session. They don't condemn you. They don't judge you. But when you walk out of there, you're supposed to feel better. You're supposed to have tools and skills to make you feel like you can give God a high five and feel it, right? But at the end of the day, we scared to go and do this. Like, no. You know, I didn't know what a therapist was until God delivered me from some things. And I was like, oh man, there is a thing called therapy. You know, how many times y'all heard is when you go through something and people tell you pray about it.
Right.
Well, let me digging it all. I've been praying for years, and sometimes at that time, them prayers felt like they didn't even meet the ceiling fan. Okay. But I needed something a lot more deeper. I needed something. I needed a little more professional help to help me get through the human side of the nonsense, right?
Yeah.
I knew what the spiritual part was. That was a no-brainer, but God's word says he doesn't dwell with man always. So in that humanistic part of my life, I needed help. I knew the Bible, I knew the word, but sometimes we can't compartmentalize what we need for the human and what we need spiritually. And if you can't get it together spiritually, you sure gonna mess it up spiritually. Did I say that right? If you don't get it together in the human, you mess it up spiritually. Okay, I said it right. Okay, so yeah. Listen, this is an unscripted podcast. Anyone that's coming in for the replay, we are talking about grief, how to process it, beyond praying through it, processing it beyond the tears. Once you done cried it out, right? Even before you cry it out, did you even process it? Right? Did the anger hit you so bad that you acted out before you even processed it? Because we can do that, right? I had the opportunity to process the passing of my mom first, right? Understanding what this is. My mom was a prayer warrior, right? Her prayers were thick. And I am grateful that I was able to spend that time with her when I did, because now I know she's with God. She got all the new things that she desired. She's in no more pain, right? She ain't even studying us down here. She left her prayers with us, and that's what we got. But she's having her a good old time up there. I can't be mad at that, right? I want to see her, but I ain't ready to go right now, right? So I love her mama. I ain't ready to go just yet. My work down here is not done just yet, right? But I made my mom a promise while I could hear her and speak to her that I would continue to get me together, right? Because I do want to be able to see my mom, and I'm grateful that even when I err, God still loves me. right? I had an opportunity because my family got a chance to spend more time with my mom than I did because I live so far away. But my sister probably gonna get me, but because of her, I got to spend my mom's last birthday, right? Like, to me, I keep thanking my sister for that over and over and over again. That was the best gift that I could ever receive in my entire life, because God knew that that would be the last time I would ever spend a birthday with my mom. I got to spend the time with her by myself. I can't even fathom that experience. Everything my mom wanted, I got it. I got it. She wanted some little mini them lamb T-bone steaks. Man, I went to the store and bought her a boohoo. I said, Mom, what else you want? She got gourmet meals. Everything was cooked from scratch. Like, I'm catering to my mom because my mom is my queen in my life, right? So sometimes people don't have that ability to do that for their mom, but that's what I did, right? Because I can't walk in everybody's shoes. I'm only expounding what the experience that I have, right? So when my mom, I had that opportunity to spend with her, like, I cherished that. And because I wanted more time with her, but that wasn't up to me, I prayed and asked God to let me dream about my mom, right? And I promise you that third day, I asked God, well, I prayed like 3 days before. And like on that third day, I had this very vivid dream of me and my mom. I don't know what we were talking about. Whatever it was, my mom was tickled, which it didn't take much to tickle her anyway. We were cackling. You know how she used to just say, oh, and she
Lean all
clapped
the
her
way
hands
back.
up. Yeah, she leaned all the way back and she gets so tickled. Oh my God, that was like the best dream I had. And I wanted to keep getting that dream back. But God gave me enough that I needed, right?
Yeah.
That is what you were talking about, Dania, is, having God close to your heart so that you can get a prayer up, right?
Yeah.
Saying those scriptures so you can have that interaction. Because I was happy that I got to see my mom in a dream. That don't normally happen because you have no control over dreams. But I got to with my mom, So I'm saying there's a whole lot of connections with the passing of my mom that she left behind. And there has been a series of threes popping up, right? And it's crazy because she took three breaths. She had three breaths in the same amount of increments when she passed away, right? The time that she died was in threes, right? My son's birthday is 2-3, right? And he turned 13. So when you add those numbers up, 2 and 1 is 3. And of course, 23 is 3. So that kept coming up. Everything in threes kept coming up. When I prayed to have that dream about my mom, that was one day. The third day I got the dream. Everything kept happening in sequences of threes. And I realize in my life now, I've been seeing a lot of sequences of threes. I don't know what my mom prayed, but her prayers is still so alive today. A lot of people don't even know that my mom had a pacemaker. And when the morticians took her to the church, they kept hearing something going off. My mom's pacemaker was still buzzing when they pushed her in that church, and we thought they'd turn the thing off. That's the power of prayer. And a lot of people are afraid to read scriptures and pray and read it until you feel it in your shana. No, my mom was a warrior. She prayed. Like, don't mess with her and God, right? There's a problem if you go there. But I'm grateful that my mom left a legacy for us to follow, right? I'm grateful. Not everybody have a mom or a guardian or whatever. If you got somebody close to you, cherish them, right? And especially in our community, we have to learn how to love more and fight less, right?
Amen.
That's one thing in the community. If you all out crazy and doing stuff, ain't nobody gonna want to be around you when you're in that state of mind. Because sometimes grief can put you in that state that don't nobody want to be around you, right? Do you want to be that person? So we can keep it real. What else y'all got to add to this? With processing grief.
Oh,
You can go ahead, Dean, if you want.
go ahead, Kima. Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to quickly trickle back to something you said, Sophia, about guilt
Mm-hmm.
and apologizing. Sometimes people use their grief as a way to be mean, and that's us like, oh, I'm grieving,
Mm-hmm.
so this is why I behave that way. But like you said, accountability,
Yeah.
because once you've somewhat worked through your grief and you're on the other side of, you're working through those stages of grief, you still got to deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
People don't forget how you made them feel.
Right.
exactly.
It's like, I understand you were grieving, but you hurt me.
Yeah.
And you should have, so some people don't feel like they should apologize for the way they acted, when they were grieving. And it's like, no, you're still accountable for everything that you do and say. God doesn't say, okay, well, you were grieving from February the 5th to, March the 5th. So I give you a pass, and whatever sin you committed, you good.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it's like, we still have to be mindful of how we deal with people, because it's a blessing that you were able to work through your grief while she was here. See,
Mm-hmm.
some people don't get that the death is so abrupt, and it's like they don't have time to process it. But God allowed you and your family and Mother Gates church family to process and kind of grieve her while she was here, because it's like you knew it was coming, you just
Right.
didn't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um but and, it's different for people who grieve people who are still alive, and they don't have any health concerns, and they
Right.
have to grieve that it's like, I can't talk to them, I can't see them, I can't spend time with them, and they're still here in the land of the
Yeah.
living, walking, breathing, talking, nothing's wrong. So it is a blessing that you were able to grieve her and love on her while she was here. And so I do believe, I'm not diminishing your grief at all and what you're feeling, but it's just like the grief you felt on February the 5th, you've processed it enough where you're not feeling that same level of grief
Absolutely.
today on March 26th. Like, I think people forget, it's like working through your grief. It doesn't mean don't deal with it. It doesn't mean bottle your feelings up and it's like get over it. It's like, no,
Yeah.
work through. Like,
yeah,
why? It's like you look at the life they lived, and you ask yourself questions. Okay, so why do I feel like this? What
Yeah.
is it now? Am I looking at, am I guilty about something? What should
Mm-hmm.
I have said? And I do believe that some people who grieve really, really heavy for a long time, it's not healthy. It's not that it's such a big deal. I don't believe that it's healthy for you, because it's just stress now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting stress on your body, on your heart, and it's like, long term, what does it look like? Do you have diabetes now? Do you have high blood pressure now? Are you
Mm-hmm.
overweight now? Are do you emotionally eat, and like, it's so many things. Guilt,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, grief can turn into so many different
Yeah.
things when
Uh,
people are honest about, this hurts
mm-hmm.
yeah,
and I don't understand, but I also don't have to understand. Maybe next year I'll understand a little bit better, but I have enough grace for
Right.
myself to say that,
Absolutely.
work through it. And it's so many things when people say, they say things and it's cliche, like, it don't get no better, it don't get easier. And it's just like, but it can.
Yeah.
It can get easier to handle. It's like, the more you work a muscle, I
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
only do 10 pounds, but maybe next month I can do 20, and then a
Yeah.
month after that I can do 30. And so when it comes to your grief, when you work that muscle of dealing with the grief and processing it and praying through it, it's just like you're working that muscle. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I can get through this. I'm aware enough to know that this hurts, but I'm also self-aware enough to know that I still got to deal with people, and I
Mm-hmm.
still got to show love and
Mm-hmm.
kindness and compassion, because what we go through shapes us, and it's either going to help you deal with people in a better way, or people are not going to want to be around you because they can tell you're not
Mhm.
processing whatever it is and working through whatever it is that you're going through. If you're, I will tell anybody, if you have guilt that is attached to someone that you've lost, deal
Mhm.
with it.
Yeah.
At this
Yeah.
point, they're gone, and you can't talk to them and
Mhm.
get a response, but you can pray and
Mhm.
ask God to relieve you of that guilt, and
Mhm.
ask God to free you from that, to be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you don't carry it around.
Mhm.
You don't want to. I tell people, would your loved one want you grieving so deeply for the rest of your life?
Mhm.
Would
Yeah.
would they want you grieving in that way for the rest of your life? Or would they want you to work through your grief so you can be happy?
Right.
So you can feel free? And so it's just like, I, I lost a parent, and I had to deal with that. And some people might say, well, y'all weren't close
Yeah.
and you had
Right.
a father
Yeah.
figure. And I'm like, that didn't matter, because
Yeah.
now I'm grieving the relationship I did not have and cannot
Mhm.
have more.
Yeah.
I'm grieving not being able to be attached to the person who was one of the people who helped get me here.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Mhm.
like I won't have that father-daughter relationship that I want. And at the end of the day, you can have the top tier best father figure like I have currently, but
Mhm.
he's still not my flesh and blood.
Right.
And that's the difference. And so I had to work through what I thought people were saying.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's That's a lot. You're not working through what they're saying. I had to work through what I thought people were saying about me,
Right.
and about how hurt I was to lose my dad.
Mhm.
Like I'm he won't see anything. I said while he was here,
Yeah.
I grieved him not being present, and now he's gone. He won't see my daughter. He won't see me get married. He didn't see me graduate from college. He was here and didn't see me graduate from high school. So
Right.
it's like I had to work through some guilt and some unforgiveness that we
Mhm.
have when people pass away.
Yeah.
I always said, how dare you die? And
Mhm.
when I processed that, I was like, girl, he didn't ask,
Absolutely.
you know, he
Yes.
didn't die. He didn't ask to get cancer. He didn't ask to suffer,
Yeah.
but just like when you are not dealing with it, that's how you think
Yeah.
that this person somehow did this to you. They left you here. And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you left me here, but I can manage.
Mhm.
And, I can love on the people who are still here. And I
Mhm.
can thank God that I do have a father figure, that somebody that I can call on, and somebody who I know from day one has loved me
Right.
and as his own. Like I never had to question that. And I know everybody doesn't have that, but still
Mhm.
it's just like having to process that and having to be okay, and then having to
Yeah.
say, Lord, forgive me for
Mhm.
having forgiveness in my heart
Mhm.
towards someone who's deceased. And it sounds crazy, but
It
I carried it
happens.
for years. I
Mhm.
carried it for years, and it wasn't until I went to school and I had to do we had to do group work together.
Yep.
The goal was, you deal with it now, so when you get in therapy with a client, you're not, transferring what
Mhm.
you're feeling onto them, and you're also able to manage what you're feeling, even if they experience what you
Yeah.
even if you've experienced what they're.
Right.
So
Right.
when it it was so heavy, and remember I remember God telling me, you need people who will stand in the debris with you
Yes.
when everything falls down and it just seems like there's nothing left, and it's just like you don't know what else to do and how to feel, and how, it's like I had to give myself permission to grieve the passing
Yeah.
of my. It's like,
Yes.
girl, he was your dad. No matter
Mhm.
how close y'all were, no matter,
Mhm.
the arguments y'all had, he was a true Jamaican through and through. He
Yeah.
was if any preconceived idea people have about Jamaicans, he was that. He was a know-it-all. He had a bad attitude, but it
Mm,
was just like that was my dad. And that
yeah.
was what I knew. I was like, it wasn't always bad. We shared laughs and we
Yeah.
joked and things like that. So I don't know. Like, I just, once I gave myself permission to grieve him, I was able to move forward pretty quickly. I was just like,
Mhm.
it's okay.
Yeah.
And I can, mourn his loss you know, and not be worried about whether somebody is like, why? Because
Mhm.
they don't have to know why.
Mhm.
As I
Yeah.
understand why and all of that. So that's my little
Yeah.
encouragement to people who may feel guilty and who may have some unforgiveness or some issues with apologizing. Like, be okay with apologizing to people when you've
Mhm.
hurt them, even though you were grieving, because you still want people to support you once
Absolutely.
you're feeling a little bit better.
Right.
Once you are
Right.
back to your normal life, you want people to still love on you and not
Absolutely.
turn away from you, because it's just like, I can't move past the fact that
Mhm.
you hurt me. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
and you
Yeah.
can't be too proud to apologize. But yeah,
Right.
learn to apologize. If you're
Yes.
feeling guilty, give it over to the Lord.
Mhm.
Like, He understands that He can do more with it than you can. Like, I'm
Absolutely.
telling you, it will feel much better if you just deal with it.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
hard,
Yeah.
because once you
Yeah.
pull all those layers back, you're gonna see you. That's a
Absolutely.
part of self-aware, is I
Mhm.
gotta see me in the raw,
Yes.
and I gotta know what that looks like. And it
Mhm.
don't always look good, but you
Sure.
deal so
You
so
do it
nobody can use those things as
again.
ammunition against you.
Mhm.
To make you
Absolutely.
step out of character, because
Mhm.
sometimes we wonder, why am I doing that? Why did I say that? Why
Yeah.
am I acting that?
Yeah.
Because somebody weaponized your triggers, because you
Yes.
Yes.
won't deal with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You, it's
That's
like, once
powerful.
you deal with it, it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're
Mhm.
doing. I've seen this before. I
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Self-awareness
and
is
it's
powerful.
cool.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's
Okay.
all I got.
Well, that was good, Kima. Okay. Miss Dania, did you want to add some words of encouragement so we can start to head this
Yes.
into a closing, so we can, start to collaborate on our next podcast? So, what do you have to say as far as the closing for the people?
Um, it was one thing that kept popping out to me from both of you guys. Shifting your mindset.
Uh huh.
Huma said renewing your mind. Some people would just say scriptures, but don't really understand how to really apply that. You have to renew your mind daily. So when dealing with grief, shift your mindset. Like, it's okay, that you're sad that they're gone. But just like you said, you got to spend the last birthday with your mom. Make that the big thing that, oh, and that's what you're doing. For me, God allowed me to have that last conversation with my cousin. It was at 4 o'clock in the morning. I
Wow.
texted him a long paragraph, and I'm glad I still have it on my phone. So when I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling down, I go back and read it, and I just thank God, like, thank you for putting that on my heart to reach
Mm-hmm.
out to him. And he FaceTimed me. He was up that day.
Wow.
And we got to talk, and we were reminiscing. We always reminisce about our
Yeah.
grandma. Our grandma is crazy. We love her to be. But that was my best friend, and I just thank God that he allowed me to have that final conversation with him. So that's a memory that I hold close to me when I do have moments, of, I wish he was still here. It's like, no, I got to talk to him one
Mm-hmm.
last time.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just a sudden, like, oh my goodness, I didn't talk to him for a long time. No, God allowed me
Yeah.
to have that last conversation. So just shifting your mindset. Focus on, like, it's okay to dwell a little bit, but just don't make that the like make don't make that overcome or surpass all the good in the
Right.
relationship, if there is good in the
Right.
relationship.
Yeah. So what I'm
But
hearing from that is, through all the grief, find some gratitude to
yeah,
help you
Yeah.
shift your mindset. So, ladies, thank you so much for being a part of this chit chat today. praying through it, processing it beyond the tears, right? It is so important for our listeners to be able to hear our own personal stories about how we deal with grief in our own way. No one gets to tell the next person how to grieve. This is to enlighten people on healthy ways of coping and unhealthy ways of coping, and how grieving can turn into mourning, right? Because a lot of people don't understand the difference there too. So yeah, I still have my breakdown moments of thinking about my mom, but I sit in it, I get out of it, so that it doesn't turn into any levels of depression. So thank you very much for you all coming on, co-hosting. So this ends the first episode of She Power podcast. I am your host, Sophia Gathers.
I am your co-host, Denia Walker.
And I'm your other co-host, Takima Simmons.
And we are She Power. So thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode. And if you all want to subscribe to our channel, if you want to ask questions, please drop them in the message and we'll do our best to respond to it. But stay tuned. You all are going to love some of the topics that we have coming. So until next time, She Power. Again, I am your host, Sophia Gathers.
I am your co-host, Denia Walker.
And I'm your other co-host, Takima Simmons.
And good night.
Good night.